Welcome to Movie Mash. Today we're going to recap a sci-fi and thriller movie called Replicas from 2018. Please don't forget to subscribe for more interesting recaps. A helicopter, carrying something valuable, lands on the island of Arbo, Puerto Rico. In his office, William waits for the cargo to arrive. The helicopter lands on Benin Industries property, and immediately everyone at the facility is notified of its arrival. William, Scott, and Margaret walk toward the experimental laboratory. William checks with Scott and Margaret if the donor has completed the required paperwork. Upon hearing the announcement, Ed swiftly gathers his belongings and makes his way there too. The donor is positioned and unpacked in the laboratory alongside a robotic body. William and Ed discuss the specifics of the donor's death before moving forward with the experiment. Ed examines the donor's cortex activity and affirms his viability. William agrees with the assessment and informs everyone that the biological brain will be replicated within a synthetic one. He instructs Ed to initiate the process. The neural probe, designed for the task, is activated, commencing the transfer of the soldier's brain. William begins the neural imprint process, concentrating on transferring the human mind onto the synthetic counterpart. Activating all mental functions, he instructs Margaret to energize the body. The replicated entity awakens and William addresses it by its name. As it starts moving, it inquires about his identity, prompting William to clarify the transition into a synthetic brain. However, upon coming online, it begins to panic, tearing itself apart piece by piece, until William intervenes and shuts down the subject. William updates Jones on the recent progress, but Jones remains unimpressed by the subject's first spoken words, emphasizing the need for more significant results to satisfy the company's shareholders. William reminds Jones of the sacrifices his family has made for his life's work and assures he is very close to a breakthrough. Later, William returns home to find his wife Mona preparing for a trip. In a rush, he discovers that his children, Matt, Zoe, and Sophie, haven't packed yet. Ed enters the house and Sophie hands him her pet fish with a request not to overfeed it. Ed inquires about William's conversation with Jones and whether he has been fired. Mona overhears the conversation as William explains the disturbing incident where the subject tore itself apart. However, William interjects and informs Mona that the subject spoke. Concerned, she points out that if it can speak, it likely has the capacity to feel, and cautions against resurrecting the dead until he resolves all ethical implications. As a doctor, Mona is uneasy about the potential suffering in his experiments. They pack the car, and William reassures her that he is on the brink of a breakthrough, though something is hindering the synthetic from attaining consciousness. Mona suggests they may be missing a soul, but William dismisses this, attributing it all to neurochemistry. Unhappy with his response, Mona questions if he's losing sight of what's morally right. Ed sees them off, and later they drive through the rain, narrowly avoiding a collision with a truck. In a shocking turn, a tree strikes their car, fatally injuring Mona. Subsequently, William drives off a cliff into the water. Upon regaining consciousness, he checks for survivors, discovering that he is the only survivor of the crash. Rather than calling an ambulance, William contacts Ed. Ed arrives with their equipment and accompanies William to the scene of the accident. William requests Ed's assistance, but Ed suggests involving the police. After some deliberation, Ed changes his mind and collaborates with William to transfer the minds of his family members into the equipment. As they reach the facility, Ed shares his reservations about creating human clones, citing past failures. He questions William about his readiness to terminate the process if complications arise, but William evades a direct answer, expressing his determination to proceed. Ed presents the pods for replicating the bodies, expressing concern about the uncertainty in perfecting the mind transfer process. At the sight of the bodies, William implores Ed not to disclose the events to anyone. Additionally, William instructs Ed to dispose of the bodies, a task to which Ed agrees. He informs William that he'll meet him back at the house. Upon Ed's return, he opens the truck, revealing only 3 pods for creating the bodies. Unable to decide which family member to resurrect, William writes their names on a piece of paper and asks Ed to make the choice. Ed refuses, forcing William to make the decision himself. Drawing a name from the bowl, William selects Zoe. Later, Ed provides instructions on caring for the pods and maintaining the chemical balance inside. Critical to their success is keeping the pods powered. They must never lose energy. Lacking a backup generator, William improvises by collecting car batteries and connecting them to the pods. Ed informs him that the clones will take 17 days to fully form, and William has until then to instill consciousness in them. When asked about Zoe's fate, William explains that he will erase her memory from their drives, and they will have no recollection of her. In subsequent scenes, William is shown deleting Zoe's memory from the minds of the others. However, a hard drive containing her consciousness remains active. Several days later, Ed encounters Jones at work, who inquires about William's absence. Ed fabricates a reason for William's non-attendance, and Jones warns him to convey the message that if there isn't progress with the synthetic soon, their project will face closure. Ed promptly calls William, conveying the urgency and the potential risk to the expensive equipment now in his possession. William instructs Ed to come to the house and monitor the pods so that he can attend work. Upon settling into work, Jones pays Ed a visit, displaying little concern for the possibility of illness. On Ed's desk, he notices a drawing by Zoe. Returning home, Ed has the drawing with him. As he approaches his front door, he encounters Matt's teacher, who checks on him due to the boy's prolonged absence from school. Ed explains that Matt has chickenpox to handle the situation. He questions William about why he hasn't informed the kids' school and Mona's workplace about their circumstances, as if anticipating that their disappearance might go unnoticed. In the following days, Ed takes charge of orchestrating a charade by using their laptops and phones to create an illusion that the family is still alive. He emails the kids' school and exchanges texts with their friends. Meanwhile, Margaret oversees the preparations for the robot body, while William works from home, striving to find a method for transferring the mind from one body to another. Faced with unsuccessful simulations, he begins to lose hope. The clones are nearing completion, and Ed continues to cover for William at work, allowing him to run one simulation after another. 17 days after the accident, Ed arrives at William's house to extract the clones from the pods. However, William admits he's not ready because he hasn't identified the reason for the previous experiment's failure. Ed explains that the longer they remain in the pods, the more they age, making waiting for a solution impractical. William decides to sedate them to maintain a blank mental state. Ed warns that he can only keep them sedated for 72 hours. As they begin the process, draining the pod containing William's wife, she starts breathing on her own. William promptly sedates her. Ed is thrilled that their experiment has succeeded. They set up a force field for the clones, and Ed departs, pledging to return the next day to check on them. Continuing his scrutiny of the previous experiment footage, William remains puzzled about why it failed. That night, prepared to terminate his wife, he receives a call from Jones. While conversing with Jones, he notices that Mona's clone's heartbeat rises each time he touches her. When Ed arrives at the house, William excitedly reveals that he has figured out the issue. Taking Ed to Mona, he demonstrates the discovery and explains that the brain transfer fails when it's not in its original body. The synthetic brain triggers panic when it can't locate its own flesh. The solution involves tricking the mind into thinking it's in its own body. With the family's bodies being their clones, William believes the process should be simpler. They prepare to initiate the transfer of Mona's mind into her clone's body. William coordinates the uploading process and initiates the imprint. Initially, Ed panics when nothing appears to happen, but suddenly Mona begins convulsing. She awakens, recognizing him. William puts her back to sleep until he repeats the process with the kids and readies the house for their return. After completing everything at the end of the day, Ed departs, expressing the expectation of seeing William at work. Returning to the house, William undertakes the task of cleaning up, eliminating any evidence of the recent events. His final challenge involves erasing all traces of Zoe's existence, packing her belongings, and discarding them. Later that night, he lies down next to his wife in bed. The next morning, William wakes to find Mona missing. Hastening downstairs, he discovers his family having breakfast, seemingly oblivious to the recent occurrences. Mona, feeling great, goes out for a run, and the kids request pancakes, which William prepares for them. While Mona is jogging, she experiences abdominal pain. Upon returning, Sophie pours milk, only to find it curdled. Mona mentions she had just bought it recently. William receives a call from Ed, urging him to be at work for an incoming donor to avoid exposing their secret. He informs the clone family that he has to leave for work, and they accept it without suspicion. However, Mona senses something strange in his behavior. At work, William and Ed prepare the donor for the transfer, but William deems the donor non-viable to spare them from potential suffering. Under pressure from Jones and Ed's disappointment, William decides to transfer his own mind into the synthetic brain. He takes the transfer equipment to the toilet and performs the transference protocol on himself. Meanwhile, Sophie and Mona search for their cell phones but cannot find them anywhere. Feeling unusual, Mona expresses her concerns. Meanwhile, at the facility, William confides in Ed about his self-transfer. He outlines a plan to create an algorithm that will link the imprint to the artificial body, tricking the synthetic brain into perceiving the body as his own. Additionally, by having himself inside that body, William aims to establish a baseline for the transferred consciousness. Returning home that night, he finds Mona distressed, and she immediately confides that something feels wrong. Unable to recall events from the past weeks, she seeks comfort from William, who advises her to rest. In the basement, William writes the algorithm, positioning his consciousness drive next to Zoe's. Later, Sophie experiences a nightmare about her mother's death, calling for Mona. William reassures her, guiding her to the basement where he alters her memory to exclude the traumatic events. Mona discovers him there and demands to know the truth about what he did to Sophie. She insists on the whole truth. William confesses to Mona that he brought them back from the dead, leading to a later conversation where she questions how he could do such a thing. William explains that he couldn't bear the thought of losing them and felt compelled to take action. Mona, understanding his desperation, accepts his reasoning. The next day, the family joins Ed at the market. Mona almost recalls something when she thinks she sees Zoe. That evening, over dinner, William suggests moving back home. However, Sophie brings up Zoe, and as they discuss her, they begin to recollect bits of information. Mona confronts William, who attempts to deceive her, but she sees through his lies. The doorbell interrupts the tense moment, and Jones greets Mona, requesting a private conversation with William. Jones reveals that he is aware of everything William has done and considers his family as subjects of the company's trial. Fearful of the consequences if their secret is exposed, Jones insists that the family cannot continue pretending everything is normal. William tries to negotiate by offering his knowledge of making the synthetic brain work. But Jones, revealing the company's involvement in the weapons industry, has a different plan. He demands the algorithm and instructs William to say goodbye to his family. William gets the algorithm, but then he goes back and attempts to drug Jones, only manages to knock him unconscious. Destroying the algorithm, he decides to come clean about Zoe, Mona, and the company he works for. Realizing the imminent danger, William urges Mona that they need to run. They quickly escape in a car before the assassins can react. Jones wakes up to find the algorithm destroyed, and one of his men reveals the family's tracker. Jones instructs them not to shoot the family in the head. Simultaneously, another car begins pursuing them, ramming into their vehicle. Despite the attack, the family manages to escape. William discloses to Mona that the trackers are inside them, attached to the central nervous system, and cannot be removed. Mona suggests driving to the clinic where she works. Upon arrival, she guides the family to a room, instructs Sophie to lie on the bed, and prepares a defibrillator. Mona explains that she can disable the trackers with the defibrillator. The assassins arrive at the hospital and notice one tracker going dark. After placing the defibrillator on Matt's chest and shocking him, Mona's tracker vanishes, and the assassins are unable to locate them. The family successfully escapes the hospital. Jones makes a call, and William drives the family to the marina, attempting to secure Ed's boat. While searching for the keys, the assassins arrive and apprehend Mona and the kids. William witnesses their capture but is unable to intervene in time. At the office, Jones hands Ed back his boat keys and assures Mona that everything will be fine if William cooperates. She expresses doubt, fearing they will be killed. William arrives at the facility, where Ed reveals Jones's betrayal, admitting his complicity from the start. William enters, and Ed apologizes before attempting to negotiate with Jones, who kills Ed to emphasize his threats. William recreates the algorithm and initiates the imprinting process inside the synthetic brain without anyone's knowledge. The activated body breaks through its restraints. Returning to Jones, William hands over the algorithm just as Jones is about to harm Mona. Unexpectedly, the robot, now animated, walks in, proclaiming its intention to protect the family. The assassins attempt to shoot the robot, but it effortlessly overpowers them. With the family ready to leave, William can't abandon the robot and faces a difficult decision. Mona urges William to go, and he intervenes just in time to prevent the robot from killing Jones. The robot and Jones engage in a conversation, during which the robot expresses a sense of ownership over the body. Jones warns that even if he is eliminated, the company will still pursue them. William and the robot propose a deal that Jones can't refuse. The robot suggests Jones go with the family and it stays behind to handle him. The robot creates an imprint of Jones's mind. 17 days later, a clone is ready to emerge from its pod. The family enjoys a beach vacation, and William introduces Zoe to them. Mona warmly embraces her. In another scene, Jones is in Dubai, selling William's invention to a wealthy individual. The robot, now working for Jones, carries out the tasks. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe for more interesting recaps.